Labor is demanding the Deputy Nationals leader stands down after an audit found she ignored independent recommendations on how to spend taxpayer money. Bridget McKenzie is accused of misusing a $100 million sports program by prioritising marginal seats over merit. The National Auditor found distribution bias in grants to grassroots sporting clubs, revealing 61% of Minister McKenzie's decisions ignored Sports Australia's advice and guidelines. Bridget McKenzie spoke to the media for the first time on camera about the grants a short time ago.
At the outset, obviously the Commonwealth Sporting Infrastructure Grant Program was incredibly successful and a program. It saw projects rolled out right across the country. It was oversubscribed, over 2,000 applications to Sport Australia to fund projects in local sporting clubs to make a difference for their communities, to get more Australians more active. And it's making a real difference right now, today. It doesn't matter whether it's Rockhampton Netball Club, the Scottsdale Footy Club, swimming clubs right around the country, different codes. Our female athletes, one of the issues that this grant program was seeking to address was the fact that on the back of our successful elite female athletes in AFLW and the Women's Rugby League codes, we were seeing this tsunami of young women rocking up to their local clubs to have a game, to learn a new sport and to participate and adopt a healthy lifestyle, and yet there was nowhere for them to get changed, there was nowhere for them to have showers, and there was nowhere for them to even go to the toilet. So rather than parents having to sausage sizzle at Bunnings on a Saturday, this program actually sought to put much-needed funds into local sporting clubs to address that facility issue. The ANAO report has made it very, very clear that this program delivered on its intent, that all projects that were funded under the program were eligible to receive that, and where suggestions for improvements had been made, the government's been working to implement that, and my advice is that Sport Australia has already been working hard to that end.
Minister, how is your parallel selection process slanted to marginal electorates, anything other than pork barrelling?
This highly popular and successful program, by the ANAO report's own words, no rules were broken. Every single one of those 684 projects that were funded was eligible for funding under the guidelines.
And was disproportionately in marginal electorates, more so the closer you got to the election. Was that a statistical accident, or did you pork barrel?
Well, if anything, Tim, there's a case of reverse pork barrelling going on. So if you look at the intervention that my decisions as Minister made to the projects that were actually delivered on, originally there was something like 26% of those projects recommended were heading into Labor Party electorates. The reality is, thanks to my decision-making as Minister, 34% of the projects delivered went into Labor Party electorates. So, in fact, my intervention actually increased the number of projects being delivered to local sporting clubs in Labor Party electorates, because at the end of the day, this is about getting more Australians more active and supporting local community sports clubs to have the facilities to increase participation.
So the Auditor-General was wrong. So the Auditor-General was just plain dumb wrong, was he?
The Auditor-General's report is really, really clear. No rules were broken. Every single one of those 684 projects that was funded was eligible, and I would have loved to have nearly $400 million to have funded every single eligible project across the country.
The ANAO does say that there was no legal authority evident to the ANAO under which the Minister was able to approve some of these grants. You disagree with that?
The ANAO report was incredibly clear. No rules were broken. Every single project that was funded was eligible to receive that funding, and that the program itself delivered on the intent. The intent of the program was to increase and improve facilities so that more Australians could get more active at their local sporting community clubs, and that's exactly what's happened. That is why Labor Party MPs, Coalition MPs, Independent MPs have all been incredibly grateful and supportive of the program as it's rolled out critical infrastructure to their local sporting clubs.
Thank you. Last question. Will you resign?
That is absolutely ridiculous. This is a highly successful program that's delivering real benefits on the ground to community sporting clubs so that parents and kids can get out there and get active, adopt a healthy lifestyle, rather than actually having to do fundraising at Bunnings every Saturday.
How is this different to Ros Kelly's conduct in 1994?
Well, that was Bridget McKenzie's defence of her grants. Let's have a listen to what Labor said about the saga a little earlier.
We don't want to wait for Parliament before there's action taken here. I don't see how Bridget McKenzie remains a minister. I don't see how she does. And Scott Morrison needs to draw the line on everything being his personal marketing strategy and getting back to a level of due process and making it clear to his ministers and to the bureaucracy that that's what he would expect.
And Bridget McKenzie's national colleague Keith Pitt defended his deputy leader a little earlier today.
Is that an acceptable way to hand out government money, taxpayer money?
Well, Tom, I wasn't involved in the process. Obviously, I'm not here to run commentary on my colleagues.
But I'm asking about what Minister McKenzie did. Was it appropriate?
Well, Minister McKenzie has fronted up to the press this morning. I understand you've been running clips on your show today. She's made statements and I'd refer you to those statements.
Do you think it was appropriate? You're a straight shooter. You can have a comment on this, surely.
Always good for a comment, Tom, or I wouldn't be here. But yeah, let's look at this in the pure, clear light of day. Seats change hands.
For more on this, I'm joined by political editor Andrew Clennell. Andrew, Bridget McKenzie is clearly insisting no rules were broken. What do you make of her defence?
Well, it's a very technical defence, isn't it? And really, she looks pretty poor out of it. She even referred to reverse pork barrelling. She was saying under the recommendations, 26% of electorates that would have been serviced by the grants would have been Labor. That ended up being 34%. Well, of course, it wasn't just marginal seats that were being targeted by the grants the minister distributed. It was targeted seats. So we saw Labor seats like Braddon in Tasmania, which the Liberals have since won, benefit from these grants. That wasn't much of an argument from her at all. She seemed to come out then just with the same talking point that she didn't break the rules. Well, they made sure they technically didn't break the rules because they made sure they asked for a list of all the eligible grants, in inverted commas, before doling the money out. 61% difference in what they did to what the department recommended. So she'll come under immense pressure when Parliament resumes in a couple of weeks, but it is hard to see anything other than the Prime Minister's office having had a hand in this or some knowledge of it. Certainly we asked them at 8 o'clock this morning whether the Prime Minister had a comment on this or whether he knew about how the grants were administered or whether there was involvement from the Prime Minister's office, and we're still waiting to hear back on that. So Scott Morrison in the House of Representatives too will be questioned pretty hard on this one.